Call to order the R-1 Board of Education meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Arlene Bailey. Here. Brian Ham.
Here.
Dan Holloway.
Do we know if it's Dan?
I can see him, but he hasn't. They're a little delayed. Dan Holloway.
Here.
John Kern.
Here.
Bree Schweitzer.
Here.
Susan Warman. Here. Mark Kelly.
Here. A quorum being present, entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Roll call.
Darlene Bailey.
Yes.
Brian Ham.
Yes.
Dan Holloway.
Yes.
John Kern.
Yes.
Bree Schweitzer.
Yes.
Susan Warman.
Yes.
Mark Kelly.
Yes. Motion passed. Next is discussion of the 2020 revisions.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, they have noticed we're in the middle of a global pandemic. And there are some monumental challenges that accompany that we've been navigating. Through that, we've tried to make our biggest priorities, just like they've always been. We've kept our priorities the same, which is, number one, the health and safety of our people, both our students and our staff, and also teaching and learning. But in the midst of a global pandemic, then our work to ensure health and safety and effective teaching and learning changes. So as we navigate these challenges, we are having to rethink everything about our schools right now, from the small things, that's the big things. Whether talking about cleaning protocols, instructional methodology, giving a high five to a student, or thinking about some of those students' social emotional needs that we typically would meet because students are in school with us, but have and a lot of the social emotional needs of our students are met by our schools. And then how are we going to respond to that when they return after being out of school? So the span of things that we are addressing and considering as we look at how to return to school in this pandemic are wide. One large and significant area that we're looking at is business disruption. And by that I mean, when we look at the protocols established by the Clay County Public Health Center, the CDC, if we were, and I dare say when we have a positive COVID case in our school district, and we've experienced that, any person who's been in close contact with that positive case, close contact being 6 feet of distance for 15 minutes or more, would have to quarantine for 14 days. So if you put that case into a secondary school and that person happens to be a student, then you're talking about 7 classes and the teachers, plus if they're in transportation, plus if they're in an activity or any other area they may be in close contact with folks. So potentially you're talking about 150 to 200 students that would have to be out of school, and that's before we're talking about any kind of illness. So just thinking about that, and then when you transition that to think about staff members, and how are we going to staff our schools to effectively deliver instruction. So that business disruption forget about illness, but just the business disruption of having to follow those guidelines is significant and substantial. And it's one of the challenges we're looking at, as well as how do we staff schools appropriately to meet the needs. So we have a lot of challenges, and we have had a team working on these challenges very diligently. And I have to say, the KSD team has been nothing short of amazing. Our team has been working long hours. They have been taking vacations and weekends for a long time, and they're broadly collaborating with others in the area and throughout the nation, and doing a lot of reading and research. It's incredible. And at the same time, we applaud each other for stepping up. We're all concerned about the workload of our team members. And by team members, I'm talking about our teachers, the support staff, community members, our administration, about all the people that make up the KSD team. So we're looking at trying to balance, like how do we balance? We need both. We need people in the midst of a pandemic to step up and do what needs to be done to serve our kids. And we also want to provide support for people to do the important work. So those are things that we've been thinking about. So one of the interesting pieces of COVID-19 is the debate over whether this is a plague or if it's a common cold being overblown through media. And so that makes it difficult for any organization to deal with, and educational organizations are not immune from that. So we come to rely upon our health officials for guidance there. We are public educators. We are not health officials. That's not our area of expertise. And so we've relied on the expertise of organizations like the Clay County Public Health Center, KU Med Center, Children's Mercy Hospital, our ad hoc committee on health and safety from here locally in Kearney, the CDC, and the American Academy of Pediatricians, for example, and others. Because we know we can't make decisions based on headlines or emotions. We're making decisions based on what health experts say is necessary for us to successfully meet our priorities of providing a healthy and safe environment for our people. So, that being said, recently, Gary Zabrak, the director of Clay County Public Health Center, has released some preliminary guidelines about school opening. And in those guidelines, he has stated three things. One is that at this time, that schools should not reopen for secondary students until any sooner than September 8th. And at that time, that open at most on a hybrid or half capacity basis, or even consider fully online. The second piece of that is that K-5 students, they can start fully at full capacity in person at the first day of school. And finally, the recommendation for masks for all people in the school is recommended with very few exceptions. So that in mind, the team has taken that preliminary guidance and has developed a calendar, an adjusted calendar that we are presenting tonight for the board. And our calendar that's been developed reflects a new beginning of school day of September 8th for pre-K through 12. It would start secondary schools, at this point, it would start secondary schools on a hybrid basis, and elementary would be at full capacity. Of course, the caveat with all of this is there are several weeks between now and September 8th. Things could drastically improve, or they could continue on the trend that we've seen recently. And so we have to continue to be prepared to adjust to what changes and to guidance that may change and evolve from our health officials. But at this point, that would be, if school were to start today and it's September 8th, that's how we would start. Finally, in order to make our calendar work, we've made some changes in the calendar. So with the start start date moving to September 8th. We have changed some early release days and half days to full days, and we have changed a professional development day to a full student contact day. We've moved the last day of school back 1 day to the 26th. We have also, we intend to use any inclement weather days up to 6 and have those be virtual attendance days. And by doing those things, we've been able to meet the hours that are needed and mandated by DESE as for student contact. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mrs. Kopp to talk about professional development.
If the board were to accept the new calendar, that would give us a number of days at the beginning of the school year. We would like to bring the teachers back on the same day we were going to bring them back before, which would be the 17th. This would give them time to go through a lot of professional development that they really need in order to be effective with their online teaching. We know we are asking these teachers to do an incredibly heavy lift this year. So this would give them not only the training they need, but in addition, it would give them the time they need to put that training to use, to learn how to do this. So often, teachers get professional development, but they truly don't have the time to work with that. Then they're busy. They're in with kids, and there's really no time to work with that. So this would truly be an incredible gift of time for these teachers to develop their lessons and the strategies and techniques that they're going to use in the classroom. The plan, if the calendar is accepted, would be right now we have Summer Institute Professional Development Plan for the 11th and 12th of August. We would push those sessions into the beginning of the school year. We would capture more teachers. Summer Institute is voluntary, so we could push those same training sessions to the beginning of the school year and capture everybody that we need to capture at that time. We would start, I think the first thing they have to do, we have to make sure all of the teachers are very comfortable with the 3 different platforms. Most of the teachers will be using Google Classroom. We're a Google district. We have a lot of teachers who are pretty proficient with the platform, so they can give us support in that way. Also, Ashley Weaver is very knowledgeable in Google Classroom. These additional days would really give her time to work with the staff across the district. We're also developing consistent direction for Google Classroom and that the teachers will need to follow. We know there's different places to put assignments on Google Classroom, different places they can do different things, but they've got to be consistent so we don't have a kid that has, 7 different classes looking in different areas where they're going to find their assignments. So just the organization of how the teachers are going to do this is very important, so they will have guidelines to go by. As far as Seesaw, which is going to be the platform for our K-1 teachers, we do have an online training component for that. We are going to have collaborative workshops for them. They're going to work together. They're going to use what they learned last year and bring that in, as well as go through the online training piece for that. And then the last one is Canvas. We have a couple of teachers who have used Canvas for a couple of years. They are incredibly proficient at it. They are going to facilitate a workshop for us. We also have a teacher, Michelle Warren, who is going to go through a 4-part training for Canvas. Since all of our teachers that use Canvas are housed at the high school, that will be easy for her to get together with them. She will be their resource for Canvas. Again, having very consistent ways of placing assignments and uploading videos, etc. Ashley is going to also work with the teachers as far as recording, saving, and uploading the lessons, so that's all done consistently. She's going to work with them just general technology tricks to make online instruction easier. So initially, they've got to learn the platforms and how they're going to do that. Then the next piece is they've got to learn how to teach online. It is very important that teachers create their own online presence, because we know these teachers still have to develop these relationships with these kiddos at home, and that's going to be tougher doing that online. So there are ways to teach engaging lessons, and so there's different ways to do that. We've got some teachers that like to do flipped lessons, and we're going to have sessions on creating good flipped lessons. We have teachers who are actually going to teach a session on making math more mobile, so making those lessons more interesting. Edpuzzle is a way to create interactive videos, so it keeps the kids engaged. We are reaching out to our Kansas City RTDC. They're going to have some online teaching sessions, and the Northwest RTDC, they already have some online sessions for elementary teachers, and we already have teachers signed up to go through that professional development. In addition to the academic piece, we still have to get our teachers trained on Panorama Education, which is our success platform, and our social emotional learning assessment. We have several new programs that teachers are going to have to be trained on, including our Ames Web Plus, which is, we've had Ames Web to assess our reading, but we now are getting Ames Web Plus, which will assess our math and reading for K-5, make sure we're meeting kids where they're at, because we know we're going to have some gaps coming in, so we want to make sure we're able to provide what every kid needs as they come in. So that's an important piece. We'll have teaching tolerance training. Our homeless numbers continue to go up. We will have training on homelessness, training those teachers what to watch for, what to report, so these kiddos can be identified. We have a social worker, a licensed social worker. She actually works with our behavior interventionist. She's going to come in and teach a session on compassion without fatigue, which is going to be a teacher wellness piece. Because again, our teachers are going to be doing a heavy lift this year, and they're going to see a lot of social emotional issues with the kiddos, and they've got to make sure they're taking care of themselves. We're also going to have trauma-informed care through Tri-Town. And as we go, we're going to continue to find other professional development as well. Have a contact with actually a teacher in Liberty who runs their virtual program, and their administration has offered for her to come in and work with our teachers as well. Again, the goal of online learning is not just to convert their in-person materials and, stick it on the computer. We want them to be innovative and transform the way they're teaching, and the only way they're going to be able to do that is to get the training and to have the time to work with it and collaborate together. We feel like there's a lot of pressure on the teachers and on the school in general right now, and truly, if we could give them this gift of time, it would be huge.
From the standpoint of, hold on, so a couple questions for you, Scott. One is how are we utilizing, we talk teachers and the heavy lift, obviously. How are we utilizing our support staff, and are we utilizing them to our fullest of capabilities? Not just teachers, but people that are in the building as well. I mean, how are we going to use those people
during those PD days?
during PD and then also during the school year.
Is that something we have been talking about?
Yeah, one thing was, a great question, for example, we talked about paraprofessionals, one of our goals last year, and then we worked on these, and this is even, will expand this year, is with paraprofessionals, we realized, and feedback from them, is it wasn't the frustration with the job itself, it was understanding more about it. So what they're saying is, we like our job, we just need to learn to get better at it, and that's asking for professional development. So that was one of our goals last year, and so now that gives us an opportunity, with these extra days, that's a group that comes to mind right away, they can, because they do support kids. They're almost an instructional assistant in some aspects. And they showed us that, during the closure, that they help support kids, on Zoom, meeting with them, and just a connection from kind of the social emotional side. So they become an extension along with the special education teacher as well. So those are opportunities. Talk about, this is going to be a heavy lift. Our nursing staff just went through training with children's nursing, and they do that on a regular basis, but then to add a piece of contact tracing, that's a huge thing. I just know from what we've dealt with in the last few weeks, that it's something that you have to understand. There's an opportunity that they put out there from John Hopkins to do a 6-hour training in that aspect and get, basically, that's become somewhat certified in there. Because public health is looking to talk to Karen Hatfield, who then is talking to a nurse who does that. So that gives them an opportunity as well.
And on, if you go back to the parents have to have 24 days of training, that's part of their contract. They generally get that during Summer Institute. 2 of those days, well, when Summer Institute was 3 days, they went all 3 days. Now it's 2 days, and then they have to do another one. We'll push all 3 of those days into the beginning of school day.
The 24, or not to the 8th, but the early start that you're talking about with teachers as well. You'll have the pairs in there as well.
So the start date for teachers and staff is not due, correct?
The other part is, so this is question 2 then. Question 2 is that if we are starting remotely or online, what are we going to do for kids that are at risk with IEPs, with issues? Can we still have the building open for 10 kids that need the school as far as, for food or for a safe place to learn? Are we still going to have that option to, the word that I have heard used is triage. But are we going to be able to use that like in a commons area for kids? It's a tough question, I know, but that's, all these kids matter. And teachers would tell you the same thing. That matters to them. So I know it's a tough question, but it's something that we have to consider too. If we are offering online, to offer these kids additional assistance, if that's available, or if the county or, health department will allow us to.
Sure. Well, we have relatively large buildings for small groups of people. So we, at this point, nothing's off the table as we plan. That's something we talk about a lot. Right. So at this point, especially when looking at groups, special needs groups, and we have been a part of our discussion is how can we engage and provide more support where it's needed more. Right. And so that's something that we've been talking about and planning for. For example, in a hybrid option at the secondary level, we're working to provide more frequent in-person instruction for those groups, maybe every day, versus the alternating A-B schedule.
Okay. Thank you. That's my 2 questions. I'll leave it alone.
From teacher contract standpoint, they have a impact, that is 174 academic days, and then 8 professional days. And we usually have 3 to 4 days in the front. This year is professional, and then we usually have one in January and then later in the year as well. So looking at, if we look at the September 8th start date, and we've taken out professional development day and shifted that to the front, we'd have 166 days of student contact and 16 days of professional development with that. So you obviously see 14 in the beginning, right? That are there, pushing the calendar, and then we have another professional development day in January. So the other thing where that comes into is with parent-teacher conference this year, we kind of changed that format of making some more time for a parent. And so that goes outside the teaching contract to that compensatory day on Friday after parent-teacher conferences, because they're getting them on Tuesday night, and then also half-day teaching on Thursday, and then additional conferences after that. So to compensate for that time, that comes in that 16th day. And then with support staff, they have varying days. For example, secretaries have a different role. Most of them are 199 days, where paraprofessionals are 177 days. Obviously, we know that a lot of those deal with student contact, but then we'll work with those supervisors to find those critical areas where they can help and want support in there. Some of it comes down, as we mentioned, with professional development, learning what we're going through right now, and how to best help support staff and kids.
So how are we gonna utilize paraprofessionals in the online or hybrid approach? Has that been discussed yet?
We did it a lot in, during the closure. So they have a pretty good relationship with their teacher that they normally report with, and help them break those kids, because it's gonna become a connectivity, trying to connect with all those kids.
Sometimes it's the parents that might have that closer relationship with the kids.
I think that, related to your question, Mr. Kern, is if we have a different modality of instruction for a long period of time, then does our staffing meet up with the instructional needs of the organization? And that's something that we looked at for the first 2 weeks in that delay to say, okay, of all of our staff members during this time, how can we continue to be really good stewards of our taxpayers' resources? And do we have a mission-critical purpose for these staff people during that time? And at this point, we said, yes, we do. We have some very important things that we can do to not only just survive, but we want to see through this pandemic not just survival, but we want to see us taking steps forward and using these opportunities to improve. And that's to me, just amidst trying to figure all these things out, and there are a million logistical questions, but there is great opportunity here. When you listen to Mrs. Kopp talk about that personalized, deep learning that we're looking for, that we can use through some of our learning management systems, through our approach to learning, to making math more mobile. I mean, there are all sorts of professional development opportunities in this 2 weeks that will help us no matter what the rest of this school year looks like, but even 5 years down the road. I have never in my life thought, wow, we have too much professional development time, and I've never heard a teacher say, I don't have something else I'd like to learn. So we have the opportunity to have almost 2 full weeks to dedicate to our craft together as a learning organization. So wouldn't choose that as and not have school because of the pandemic, but that's the gift that we have right now. Is how can we take the time that we're being given and make that into something that pushes our school district even further ahead of where we are now.
I just want to say, I commend all of you for hard work. I mean, this is a moving target all the time. The effort that you have to go to make those changes, to make this more efficient, is incredible. So I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate all of your work to do that. make this best for the students, and I know that's happening. You know, we've had things, just those from graduation is contracted, and how that's affected, but we know it's gonna happen. But I know that you guys are doing the best you can, and yeah. With it, and I just appreciate that, honestly. Anybody else have any questions?
This question is related to the calendar, but I'm sure that it will come up quickly if it's not going to let me get extracurricular activities during this time. What do you think in terms of how that will continue or not?
I can tell you that the Missouri School Board, or Missouri Misha came out today saying that they're going to look at alternate, whether or not kids have to be in school or out of school. So they just reported that today.
But if you followed, even without those changes, as long as you weren't going online virtually for everything, you could participate. So,
I was just asking them what they.
right, no, that's,
Yeah, and with the delay in the date.
right, so it's a hybrid, the fact that we're hybrid and not fully online.
Right, I understand.
That's the difference.
I understand, but is there anything unique to us beyond those that you think we need to look at? And that's great if we don't, I'm just curious.
At this time, our health officials are not restricting us on continued activity.
Okay.
And they've provided guidance about what's appropriate and what's not, and we continue to follow what they're advising.
Okay, well, then, I assume that that's all going okay so far, because we haven't changed it, so that's great.
It has gone well, and that's a credit to, I think, Mr. Swartzenbach and the coaches of coming up with a good plan and then running that through a Clayton Public Health Center and continuing to monitor that. And it's been a little tough because of that family stay away, and that's not normal, right? They like to be involved and because they all participate, but I think looking at when the kids have been following along with it, so been fortunate so far and things have gone well, but
I think that's important, if we can continue that, that's, I mean, the importance of students connecting with their teachers is just so important, and it was validated for me just in the last week on 2 different occasions where I went to graduation parties. And the teacher showed up, or the coach showed up at that party, and the kids, they go to them and they were magnets. And so the kids, need that, and to be able to do it virtually, I think it's certainly possible, and looking into ways to do it better, but to be able to have whatever kind of connection we have is very, very important, because the kids, they want it, they need it, and they thrive when they have it.
When Clay County looks at an activity, do they look individually at the activities and what our plans are, or do they look at it holistically?
So what they have put up, when they started their reentry full phase in, they gave actually a chart and guidance in each sport and then per age. And so that's what they really used in kind of the phases.
Sport and activity.
Mhm. Okay. So that's the thing that they always refer back to.
Okay.
And using that, that concept and what you need to do. Because first, if it were kids under 5 could not participate, then the gist was that happened, but probably by that time, that's what they were doing.
How are teachers in your guys' meetings, obviously health and safety of our teachers? We want kids to be able to have that interaction we care about, but ultimately, we're asking people to be put in positions that could be, could be scary, right? For them. And so how have they been taking as far as their conversations with their groups and their principals? How have they, what is their response been as far as, are there things that they'd like to see more of or less of, or anything like that?
I think one of the things is probably just understanding what happens if a case goes on, and what does it mean to them, what does it mean to kids? It's more of an information dialogue that we have a piece that we're going to put out to them, like understanding what the Family First Coronavirus Response Act is all about, and kind of the scenario questions and looking at that. But you know, if it gets into a deeper issue, what we've asked is that they come to, Don Kumar and myself, and we can sit down and discuss those, things through that. So that's been some of the things in there, and just, they've given us some feedback, and I know that Jennifer's done a good job of bringing in a lot of, teaching staff into her winning through meetings as well.
And I think their biggest concern is being ready for the online. Our teachers take a lot of pride in what they do, and, you know, Kearney has high expectations, and they want to meet those expectations. So I think they're nervous about that online piece. So, I mean, I gotta tell you, delaying the start of school gives them that time. I mean, I have no doubt that our teachers will knock it out of the park if they have the time to get that training and time to work with it. They're gonna blow it away.
Jennifer, do you feel that we have the resources we need to get them trained up in time?
I do. I will tell you what, that simple K-12 that you guys approved last month, there's so many webinars out there, and we have already given the teachers the login information for that, so they've been out exploring that. I've gotten a number of emails, they love that. They can find exactly what they need, and what we can't find there, and, honestly, our technology coach, actually, her first day back was today. So I have asked her to really go through that carefully and see any areas that we might need some additional, and we'll find it. If it's not there and if we don't already have it, we'll find it.
It's time to entertain a motion.
I move, to approve the revised 2020-2021 district calendar as presented.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Darlene Bailey?
Yes.
Brian Ham?
Yes.
Dan Holloway?
Yes.
John Kern?
Yes.
Reese Schweitzer?
Yes.
Susan Morman? Yes. Mark Kelly?
Yes. Thank you all for coming. Meeting is now adjourned.